In the winter of 1745, the Jacobite rebellion marched into Staffordshire. They didn't stay long, but their time in the county left a lasting impression, being talked about for years to come. In the year 1810, John Terrick and Rafe Lee are still nattering on in their native dialect in the Turk Shed pub in Burslem, so let's go have a listen at what they remember about the rebellion of 1745.
"We Scotch rebels come as far as Bagney, to thou Justice Merle's."
I quite well remember the talk about that, but I'm only 5 or 6 year old. Justice didn't like him, I've heard.
I think no. The young pretender with his officers stayed to breakfast at Squire's, and afterwards Scotch soldiers robbed his ice for his firearms and money, and made him show him the road toward Derby.
Ah, but they found the way back again pretty soon, if the Duke could make with him.
They didn't, and Squire thought he'd make amends for him robbing his ice, so he catched the lazy Scotch rogue as he lagged behind, tucked him up with auto or a signpost in Leek, had him fleed like a calf, and sent his hide to Tanyard to make leather for a drumhead.
Gruesome stuff. It certainly seems that Staffordshire left its mark on the Jacobite army too. But what's the story behind all of this? According to local legend, the young pretender himself, Charles Edward Stewart, stopped to take breakfast with his officers at the local squire's house in Leek, on the road towards Ashbourne. As Rafe Lee describes, the soldiers who followed him were less courteous, and they robbed the household of its firearms and money before they carried on. The rebels didn't stay long in Leek and they continued their advance, but they thought better of it once they reached Derby, and they turned back before the Duke of Cumberland's forces could force a decisive showdown with them. They reached Leek once again, merely days later. But the story doesn't end there. In fact, it continues with a vengeance. The squire, angered at the robbery, seized a straggling Jacobite soldier who'd fallen behind. According to the tale, the unfortunate rogue was hanged from a signpost in Leek, before his body was flayed and his skin sent to the tanner's yard to make leather for a drum. This gruesome story comes to us through John Ward's book of 1843, more than 90 years after the events. No contemporary accounts confirm it. Local histories of Leek record the rebels passing through, and we have the lasting legacy of them supposedly sharpening their swords on the gravestones in the churchyard, and they were supposedly billeted in the local houses. But none of the accounts make mention of a man being skinned alive. The flayed soldier is best understood as folklore. It actually seems to be a common trope, and there are quite a few other stories from various other conflicts up and down the land, where the soldier gets flayed and the skin being used for anything from making a drum to a book binding. Very few of these artefacts actually survive though, if they were ever created at all. So where was the squire's house, and did the Jacobites actually plunder it as Rafe Lee describes? Well, it possibly refers to Justice Merle's residence of Bagnall Hall, which is just outside of Leek. William Merle had been appointed High Sheriff of Staffordshire in 1742, and was quite a prominent figure in the local area. There was another local story that's quite possibly related, where the Jacobites actually took Merle himself hostage and requested a ransom of £300 for his release. But like the story in the conversation, this is only remembered anecdotally as well. It's quite possibly a variation of the same story. Another possibility is that it refers to a residence in Leek Town itself. There are local anecdotes of the Bonnie Prince himself staying at a residence in Marketplace, so it could refer to this too, but again it's mostly hearsay. Leek still does contain several buildings that date from the period. What is certain is that the Jacobite army did indeed march through Leek on their advance from Manchester to Derby in December 1745. They passed by way of local towns of Macclesfield and then on to Ashbourne before reaching Derby on the 4th of December. And then they did indeed retreat only 2 days later, and they took the same road back. They arrived at Ashbourne on the 6th and then Leek on the 7th, and they were all the way back in Manchester on the 9th, which is quite a swift march. A Manchester diarist recorded that on the 7th of December, news had come in from Leek that the rebels were there. Local tradition in Leek remembers soldiers marking the stones in St Edward's churchyard with their blades. Indeed, the markings are meant to be still visible. Beyond Leek, the Rising also left its mark in a different sort of stone. That's Stone the market town near Stafford. There, on the common plot of land just north of the town, lies a place the locals called the Mudleys. Local tradition holds that the Duke of Cumberland fortified this ground in the winter of 45 to block the Jacobites' attempt to swing west into Wales. It is true that his army gathered around Stone, for the position commanded the road south to Lichfield and west to Shrewsbury. Whether the earthworks that are still visible on the common plot of lands are actually the remains of the camp is disputed, But the story reflects a genuine strategic concern in the area. Stone stood at a decisive crossroads, and in that cold winter the government's army waited there to strike if the Jacobites should turn their march, but instead they marched towards Derby. After leaving Staffordshire, the Jacobites pressed northwards through Manchester and into Lancashire. At Clifton Moor near Penrith, their rearguard fought a sharp skirmish with the government's dragoons on the 18th of December. This was reputedly the last battle fought on English soil. By Christmas, Charles's army had crossed back into Scotland, weary and diminished. Over the following months they regrouped, but their fortunes steadily declined. On the 16th of April 1746 they met the Duke of Cumberland's forces at Culloden, near Inverness. There the Jacobite cause was shattered in less than an hour. A half-hearted Highland charge broke against the disciplined musketry and cannon fire of the British regulars. Many were killed, and those who fled were ruthlessly pursued. With Culloden, the Stuart dream of reclaiming the throne ended in blood and defeat, and the Rising of 45 passed into history. Did you know about the Jacobites in Staffordshire? What local legends have you heard around it? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do you have any other interesting facts or local folk stories around it? We'll continue this series looking at the conversation between John and Rafe next time. They've still got much more to say. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and share and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying it. It really helps us to reach a wider audience. Thanks once more, and I'll say thee again soon.